All right, Brian. Well, look, let's get on. What I'd like you to do is just tell me who you are, the regiment you served in, and the period of time that you were serving.
My name is Bryan Hunter. I was commonly known in the forces as Tab. I was called up for national service to the Queen's Own Royal West Kent Regiment in October 1955. And after completing training with those, I then put in for the Parachute Regiment, as I didn't like my posting, and passed the P course in January 1956 and was then attached to the 1st Battalion of the Parachute Regiment, 16th Independent Parachute Brigade, and I was with them to a mighty mob in 1957.
Okay. Talk to me a bit about the call-up and how you felt as a young man.
When we were called up, I think it was rather like a rite of passage. It's something you had to do, and whatever you thought, you couldn't avoid it. At the time, I was doing the City and Guilds electrical engineering course, and I'd been apprenticed to the rank organisation. And I was working in cinemas and theatres, a job which I quite enjoyed. I'd completed 2.5 years of a 3-year course when my call-up papers had come. When I made inquiries about getting an extension to sit my final exams, it was refused as my papers had not been processed. So naturally, I was far from pleased about that. But still, you know, I made inquiries through my MP, which was Harold Macmillan, and I was told that I could get an extension providing I signed on for a minimum of 11 years in the army. Well, that didn't really appeal to me, so I just had to get on and do my 2-year service.
What do you remember of, that walking through the door and those first few days, if anything?
Well, when I had to go to report at Maidstone Barracks on the 13th of October, it was a dark overcast day, ambled down to Bromley South Station, and while standing on the platform I met 3 other chaps that were also going to Maidstone. Hitchcock Hackett was 2 of their names, and funny enough we all put in for the Parachute Regiment without any concentration between us, and we all wound up on the same P course. And funny enough, I'm still in contact with all 3 of them. And at the other end, when we got to Maidstone, we was met by a 3-ton lorry, and I always remember clambering the back, and the whole floor was covered in sugar. And sugar in 1955 was still quite a rare commodity, and there you are standing in sugar going off to the barracks. When we got there, we sort of lined up, reported, handed in your papers, checked off, and then it was like one of the old films you see of being chased here, there and everywhere. We was taken to the barracks. We weren't allowed to take much kit with us, we only sort of shaving kit. And we were shown our beds, or we found our beds in the block because they all had cards on it. We were then chased around to the stores, collected all our kit. Again, big armfuls of blankets, sheets, mattresses, helmets, packs, everything you could think of, great big mountain of stuff, and then doubled back to the barracks where we dumped it, dashed off to get a haircut, short back assignments and once over the top. And from there on we went back to the barracks, started to sort our kit and get that in some order. You were then shown how to start polishing your boots. You had to go to the naffy, buy a candle to heat up the end of the spoon to burn off all the bumps off your boots. And you then started layering polish upon polish on it to start getting a gleam. You then had to get all your kit blancoed, all your belts and cross pieces, your brasses polished. and start pressing your uniform. There were never any power points in the barracks in those days. You had to plug the iron into a light socket in the ceiling, and I was always amazed that they never burnt down. Following day, it was off to get your injections. There was a whole line of tables with a chap with a needle. You were lined up in rows, and the same needle was used for every man. Because in those days, didn't have disposable syringes. So it was always best to be first in the row to get it while the needle was sharp and not too dripping with gunge, sort of thing. From then on, you sort of dropped into a normal routine, parades, being chased around from daybreak to dark, sort of thing.
How did you find the physical side of it?
I think in those days we were all a lot fitter, because nobody had a car in those days, and if you wanted to get anywhere you walked. I did a lot of cycling backwards and forwards to work because save on the bus fares. So in those days I think on the whole we were a lot fitter. There was no fat people around because you'd gone through rationing during the war. And there was no fat children, no fat people. So on the whole, I think we were a lot fitter. During the first few weeks there, they run tests on you to see how fit you were. And I was recorded at running the mile in 4 minutes 5 seconds, which was only about 6 paces behind the world record at that time. I don't know whether their watches were right, but I was well in front of everyone else on that. They kind of hinted they wanted me to join the athletics team when I was finished my training, but I wasn't the slightest bit interested in doing anything other than my 2 years, really. But training at that time only lasted 10 weeks. I went in on the 13th of October and I was on leave for a few days before joining the Parachute Regiment at the end of December. I had Christmas at home, and on the 27th I reported to Maida Barracks in Aldershot at Airborne Forces Depot.